All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about the Detroit Lions. Now, even though they were right there to making the playoffs last season, this is without a doubt a playoff team for next year. One could argue even further. I would say, real quick, they're one of the best teams in the NFC. You heard that right. They're not even ahead of schedule. They're perfectly on schedule, and that should terrify the rest of the NFL. They have had a great offseason, specifically on the defensive side, specifically in the secondary, signing Cam Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley, most recently CJ Gardner Johnson. I think the CJ signing, with especially how good of a deal it was, I think that officially woke up the rest of the NFL where it was like, you know what? This Lions team, not only are they playoff contenders, but they could definitely even go a little bit further than that. We're going to break down a couple of things in today's video, but before we do, if you guys enjoy it, you like daily NFL content along with a couple of Lions videos every single week, be sure to hit that like button, hit that sub button. Let's try and get this video to 500 likes. I absolutely love my Lions community we built on this channel. And once again, my last Lions video, I haven't even broken down the impact of CJ yet. There were NFL fans from all over saying, wow, oh my goodness. In 12 regular season games last season, CJ, one of the most up and coming young defensive backs in the entire National Football League, he had 6 interceptions. This guy has the swagger. He has this it factor. And it was kind of just Cam Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley, David Montgomery, but especially the CJ coming to Detroit move. I think it really shows like, all right, the Lions have built a culture. They're building a culture. They have this identity as a young, hungry, rising team that's well coached. They have great talent. The GM, Brad Holmes, is a genius. Apparently, he woke up his entire family when they got CJ because his value wasn't supposed to be that low. So Brad Holmes, the Lions organization, they're going into the offseason saying, yeah, CJ is one of the top-notch free agents available. He's probably outside of our price zone. Well, that was not the case. And when we take a look at the Lions defense in general last year, I've said time and time again on this page, I don't think defensive statistics do their defense justice. They have so much young rising talent, but 28th in the league, opponents points per game, about 25 points given up per game. This team had a above 500 record with the 4th worst statistical defense in the NFL. So they're young, they're hungry. You got guys like Aiden Hutchinson, James Houston, Kirby Joseph, and that's literally only 3 of them. CJ Gardner Johnson, Cam Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley, high risk, high reward type of player. They are perfect. You still have Jeff Okudah, former 3rd pick in the draft. I'm still pretty hopeful for him, although I can understand some hesitation. I'm not saying the Lions will be a top 5 defense next season. What I am saying, though, is they will be one of the better defenses next season. They will definitely not be one of the worst. I think at worst, next year, the Lions will be a middle-of-the-pack team. Now, it doesn't end there because you're loaded with the 6th pick and the 18th pick, and unless some crazy talented offensive player falls to them more so at 18, I think both picks are going to be used defensively. Now, it also doesn't even end there. I've seen most mock drafts actually have the Detroit Lions at pick number 6 taking defensive lineman from Georgia, Jalen Carter. I know he didn't have the best pro day. I'm not looking too much into it. I think he is the most talented player in this draft. But we also have news that came out earlier today. Calais Campbell will be meeting with the Detroit Lions, and Dan Campbell himself even came out here and said, yeah, we have interest in him, and we're talking to him. Now, Calais is 36 years old, but he would be the perfect leader, the perfect veteran mentor to have on your defensive line. 5.5 sacks last year at the age of 36. All right. A good part about Calais in his entire NFL career, that's been 15 seasons where he's made 6 Pro Bowls, he doesn't get injured. He doesn't have an injury concern, but you also don't need him to be a guy who is playing every single snap out there. Especially if you take a guy like Jalen Carter, I think Calais Campbell is the perfect mentor. So my point is this: Detroit's had an A offseason. like literally an A off season, and it will be an A plus by the time the draft is over and free agency comes to a little bit more of a settle down period. But seriously, I love the idea of Calais Campbell. I don't think he's outside of your trajectory or timeline or anything like that. The Lions are past that. They're no longer rebuilding. Now the Lions are competing. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, and I know Lions fans don't want to either, but the tides have turned. We saw it last year. We saw it at the end of last year. The tides are turned. And a guy like Calais, even if you don't draft Jalen Carter, I think he's still a great mentor to have. And he also still has plenty left in the tank. So you sign him to a 1-year contract, $6 million, $7 million, something like that. I think he would be perfect for this team. Now, offensively, keep in mind they were one of the best offenses in the National Football League last year. In fact, they had the lowest amount of turnovers in the entire league. They just recently lost DJ Chark since my last video, and I'm not concerned or stressed or at all. I love DJ. I know he's had injury concerns in his career, but Jameson Williams, it's like an extra first-round pick this year. We saw him at the end of the season, right? He's a breakout player. All right, he came back from his torn ACL, made his NFL debut in week 13. Now, in all 6 games he played, we didn't see more than 18 offensive snaps from him. So it was a very limited sample size. Just want him to get some NFL experience, get his legs back into it, and acclimate into the league before next season where he truly is going to break out. This guy's going to have over 1,000 receiving yards if he is healthy. Keep in mind, in his second game, he had a 41-yard touchdown catch against the Minnesota Vikings. And then right before the season ended in week 17 against the Chicago Bears, he had a 40-yard touchdown run. Or I know actually he didn't get a touchdown, but 40-yard run nonetheless. So it's a very small sample size. Oh my goodness, he's explosive. He's a playmaker. He also has that it factor. He is going to be a force to be reckoned with. But when we take a look at the offense, you still have Josh Reynolds, you still have Khalif Raymond combined. That's about 1,000 yards receiving, actually a little bit over it. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's one of the best young receivers in the National Football League as well. So you have your wide receiver 1, you have your complementary veteran/younger players, and then you have a potential breakout player in Jameson Williams. So is this team going to make a veteran free agent signing by the time next season rolls around? I don't think so. Will they take a flyer, a high upside draft prospect, not in the first round, maybe not in the second round, but third, fourth, fifth round, whatever? I do think that's the route they're going to take. And then you have the tight end room. I love Brock Wright. I also love James Mitchell. I think Brock Wright's slated to be the starter for next year. Maybe if somebody falls in the second round, you take a tight end. It's not an urgent need. In fact, I'm kind of curious what a whole season of starting Brock Wright is. It's like a 3-man tight end group. You can get very creative with the different schemes you're going to go throw out there. You're going to have to force the defense to match up with 3 tight ends, 2 tight ends, whatever it is. So it's not an urgent need, but I do think if we're talking offense outside of some depth on the offensive line later on in the draft and possibly a backup quarterback, I do think the tight end and the wide receiver room they're just 2 spots to kind of circle on your radar where it's saying, if you see somebody, like Kincaid or, whatever tight end it is, and you're in the second or third round and one of these guys has dropped there, you're going to take it. But for the most part, this team is going to focus primarily on the defensive side in the draft, which I cannot wait. Aiden Hutchinson obviously comes to mind. Kirby Joseph comes to mind, but even 6th round talents like James Houston, Brian Holmes knows exactly what he is doing, and Dan Campbell and this coaching staff, they also know exactly what they're doing. So Detroit, I think their win-loss projection was 9.5. This is not a gambling channel or betting advice channel. I'm personally thinking they're going to win over 9.5 football games next season. I do think they're going to be the NFC North champions, and who knows, we'll talk about all that stuff when it comes, but I had a great time covering this team last year, and I cannot wait for next season and the rest of the free agency and the draft, and it's just going to be a fun time, and I know Lions fans feel the same way. So that's it for today. hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content. But Lions fans, let me know what you guys are thinking down below. I want to hear your grades. Once again, I'm giving it an A, and it'll be an A+ come draft night. So that's it for me.